It was an ordinary quiet morning in a small suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where people knew their neighbors' names, kids played on the sidewalks, and the smell of fresh bread from the local bakery drifted in the air. Everything seemed peaceful and calm, with birds singing and the sun casting a warm glow over the neatly lined houses. Life went on in a simple rhythm, and nobody had any idea that something shocking was about to happen that would change the neighborhood forever. In the middle of this serene setting stood a two-story house that looked like any other on the block, with a small garden, a swing in the yard, and windows that reflected the morning sunlight. Inside, the family who lived there was starting their day like usual, preparing breakfast, getting children ready for school, and going about their ordinary routines. The house was filled with laughter, chatter, and the smell of cooking food, creating a feeling of comfort and normalcy that made the neighborhood feel safe and familiar. Suddenly, a faint smell of smoke drifted into the air, almost unnoticed at first. Many neighbors ignored it, thinking it was just someone burning trash in their backyard or a nearby barbecue, but the smell grew stronger, sharper, and more concerning with every passing minute. Eyes began to widen, and a few people stopped what they were doing, glancing nervously toward the house. As the smoke grew thicker, a thin wisp of flame could be seen curling up from one of the windows, and the realization hit that this was no ordinary morning. Something serious was happening. Panic began to ripple through the neighborhood as more people stepped outside, phones in hand, calling emergency services. The ordinary, calm morning transformed into chaos in moments. Children were quickly brought inside by worried parents, neighbors gathered in small groups, whispering anxiously, and everyone stared at the house, unsure what to do or what they might see next. It was the kind of scene where curiosity mixed with fear, and the sense of normal life seemed to hang by a fragile thread. Inside the house, the family was in shock, confused, and terrified. Flames were beginning to spread rapidly, licking the walls and filling the rooms with thick, black smoke. The family tried to find a way to control the fire with whatever they could, but it was already growing too big and dangerous to handle alone. Every second felt like a lifetime as the heat intensified, and the reality of the situation started to sink in. The house that had been a place of laughter, warmth, and memories was now under threat, and the sense of safety that everyone had taken for granted seemed gone in an instant. As the first wails of alarm were heard from neighbors, the distant sound of sirens began to break through the tense silence, getting louder and closer with every passing moment. The anticipation of help arriving brought a mix of relief and fear, because nobody knew exactly what the firefighters would encounter. The calm routine of the morning had been shattered, replaced by uncertainty and dread, and the people watching could only hope for a miracle to save the house and the family. Even in these tense moments, there was a strange sense of community, as neighbors helped each other, moved children to safe spots, and offered comfort to those trembling in fear. It was clear that in ordinary times, the neighborhood might have seemed calm and predictable, but in moments like this, the people came together in ways that made everyone realize how strong human connection can be when faced with danger. The smoke rising from the house became a signal not just of the fire, but of the attention, care, and courage that would soon play a crucial role in the unfolding story. Little did anyone know at that moment that the fire was not just an ordinary accident, and that what was inside the house would shock everyone, including the very firefighters who were rushing toward the scene. The morning that had started like any other ordinary day was now the beginning of a story that would be told and retold, a story of courage, hesitation, shock, and the unexpected choices people sometimes have to make when faced with the unbelievable. The ordinary street, the quiet houses, and the familiar sights had all become the backdrop for an event that no one could have imagined, and the story was only just beginning. Every neighbor, every passerby, and every family member watching felt their hearts racing, caught between fear and curiosity, and as the sirens grew louder and the fire spread higher, the tension in the air was almost tangible. This was the perfect moment to set the stage, to show how a calm and ordinary day can suddenly turn into something extraordinary, shocking, and unforgettable. As the first frantic calls reached the local fire department, the quiet neighborhood was already buzzing with tension. Firefighters scrambled into action, sliding down poles, donning heavy protective gear, and grabbing hoses and axes. Every second mattered, and the sense of urgency was palpable. The sirens wailed through the streets, bouncing off the brick houses and shaking loose the calm that had lingered just moments ago. Residents paused, some holding their children, others gripping their Phones, as the fire engines barreled toward the scene, leaving trails of smoke and flashing red lights behind, signaling the seriousness of the emergency. When the fire truck screeched to a halt in front of the burning house, a team of firefighters leapt into action. Their movements were precise, practiced, almost like a well-rehearsed dance under extreme pressure. Hoses were connected to the nearest hydrants, water pumps roared to life, and ladders extended toward the upper floors where the flames licked at the windows. The neighborhood, once calm and serene, had transformed into a scene of controlled chaos, a theater of heroism and danger, unfolding in real time. The crowd of onlookers was both anxious and mesmerized. Phones recorded every second, capturing smoke curling skyward, flames reflecting in wide-eyed faces, and the sweat glistening on the firefighters' helmets. Conversations buzzed in rapid whispers, neighbors speculating about the cause of the fire. Was it an accident? Did someone leave a candle burning? Is the family okay? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, as everyone waited for the professionals to take control. Inside the fire trucks, the team leader barked orders, his voice sharp but calm, directing the crew to focus on evacuation first, then containment, ensuring the fire wouldn't spread to the neighboring homes. The plan was straightforward, yet the fire was unpredictable, moving with a life of its own, feeding on curtains, wooden beams, and furniture. The firefighters' experience was evident, their movements precise, but even they could sense that something about this house was different, unusual, and potentially dangerous beyond a normal blaze. As the hoses sprayed torrents of water onto the flames, a strange look of hesitation crossed the face of the lead firefighter, his brow furrowed, eyes scanning the interior through the windows. He signaled to his team to pause momentarily, and murmurs of confusion spread through the crew. The neighborhood, unaware of what he had seen, continued to watch anxiously, sensing the pause was unusual. The suspense in the air thickened, as if time had slowed, every heartbeat echoing louder than the roar of the fire. Neighbors craned their necks to see what had caught the attention of these seasoned professionals, their curiosity mixing with fear, creating an almost electric tension. Children clung to their parents, dogs barked, and the wind carried ashes and sparks across the street. The firefighters adjusted their gear, whispering to each other, scanning, evaluating, their faces a mixture of concern and disbelief. It was a rare moment when the calm, controlled efficiency of emergency response collided with the unpredictable reality of human and environmental danger. Despite the hesitation, the team kept the crowd at a safe distance, forming a perimeter to protect anyone from getting too close. The fire roared and hissed as water hit the flames, sending up clouds of steam and smoke. The smell of burning wood, plastic, and something less familiar hung heavy in the air, making the onlookers gag and cough. The firefighters' determination was unwavering, but the unusual pause signaled that they were facing something extraordinary, something that made even heroes hesitate. In these tense minutes, every neighbor, every passerby, and every family member felt the mix of fear and anticipation, unsure if the house could be saved, or what unseen danger awaited inside. The arrival of the fire department had brought hope, but hope now mingled with shock and uncertainty, setting the stage for a moment that no one, not even the seasoned firefighters, could have predicted. A simple call to extinguish a fire had transformed into a story that would captivate, shock, and haunt the neighborhood for days to come. The firefighters' careful, measured actions, the roaring hoses, the flashing lights, and the growing crowd, all combined to create a scene of drama, courage, and suspense, marking the beginning of an event that was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would challenge expectations, reveal extraordinary truths, and leave everyone questioning what could possibly be inside that house to make even firefighters hesitate. As the firefighters paused and assessed the house, a strange hush seemed to fall over the chaotic scene. The fire still roared, smoke twisted into thick gray columns, and the flames licked hungrily at the windows, yet something about the interior made even the most experienced firefighters hesitate. Their faces showed confusion, their hands tightened around hoses, and a tense silence passed among them. A sense of unease rippled through the crowd as neighbors noticed the sudden pause, whispering to each other, "What's going on inside? Why aren't they acting?" Their curiosity mixed with growing fear, making the atmosphere almost unbearable. Through the windows, the firefighters glimpsed something unusual, something that immediately didn't belong in a burning home. It wasn't the fire itself or the structural damage that caused concern. it was what the house contained. The lead firefighter stepped back, signaling his team to hold, and pointed to the interior, a gesture that only heightened the suspense for those watching. The crew exchanged hurried whispers, their voices low and urgent, trying to process what they had just seen. Something no training had prepared them for. The neighbors' anxiety grew as the delay stretched, every second amplifying their fear. Some began recording the scene, hoping to capture the shocking moment. Others shook their heads, unable to comprehend why the professionals weren't moving forward. Children clung to parents, pets whined, and the smell of smoke and burning furniture filled every corner of the street. The scene had transformed from a normal emergency into something almost surreal, a suspenseful drama playing out in real life. Inside the house, the situation was even more intense. The heat from the fire was unbearable, yet the firefighters couldn't approach as they normally would. Their hesitation wasn't born of fear alone, it was born of shock, a visceral, almost physical reaction to what they were seeing. Something extraordinary and unexpected lay within, something that defied the ordinary protocols of emergency response. It was rare for even the most seasoned firefighters to experience such a moment, when training. An instinct collided with disbelief. The lead firefighter studied the scene carefully, his eyes scanning every corner, calculating the risks, and considering what would happen if he proceeded. The team held their positions, prepared for any outcome, yet frozen by the unimaginable reality before them. The crowd outside could sense the tension, as if the firefighters were staring not just at a fire, but at a puzzle or secret that demanded respect, caution, and awe. Every person watching could feel that something remarkable was unfolding, something that would change the story entirely. Whispers ran through the spectators like wildfire, speculating about the cause of the delay. Is there someone trapped inside? Is it dangerous chemicals? What could be inside that would make them stop? Nobody could guess the truth, yet everyone felt that what lay within that house was extraordinary. A strange combination of fear, curiosity, and anticipation gripped everyone, creating a surreal energy, as if the normal rules of life had paused, leaving only suspense and shock in the air. The firefighters' initial shock began to ripple through their actions, their usual confidence and quick decisions replaced by cautious deliberation. Their communication became more urgent yet careful, and the air around them seemed charged with the weight of an invisible revelation. Even as water from the hoses hissed against the flames, the sense of disbelief lingered. The fire continued to grow, yet the hesitation of the crew spoke volumes, signaling that this was not an ordinary house fire, but a scenario so unusual it demanded attention, respect, and careful consideration. Neighbors craned their necks for a better view, hearts racing with a mixture of fear and fascination. Some stepped back instinctively, sensing that this was a moment bigger than themselves, bigger than the ordinary emergencies they had seen before. The initial shock wasn't just on the part of the firefighters, it had infected everyone watching, spreading through the street like the smoke curling into the sky, transforming the ordinary morning into a moment of suspense, tension, and unforgettable amazement. And in that silence, in the midst of flames and smoke, a collective understanding seemed to settle over everyone. What lay inside this house was not something that could be approached casually, it was something that would challenge every assumption, something that would leave the neighborhood talking for weeks, something that would shock even the bravest hearts. The initial shock had only begun, and the true story of what was inside was about to unfold, forever changing the ordinary street into a stage for the extraordinary. The firefighters' hesitation had not gone unnoticed by the gathering crowd. Their whispers grew louder, their curiosity sharper, and the tension in the air became almost tangible. Everyone wanted to know what could possibly be inside that house to make even seasoned firefighters pause. But inside, the secret remained hidden from the neighbors' eyes, tucked behind the walls of smoke and flame, waiting for the moment of revelation that would leave everyone speechless. The lead firefighter, a man with decades of experience, carefully moved closer to a window, peering through the smoke-stained glass. His eyes widened, and he quickly signaled to the rest of the team to hold their positions. There it was, the astonishing, unbelievable truth staring back at him, something so extraordinary that it defied every expectation and standard procedure. His mind raced, trying to balance the duty to save the house with the reality of the discovery, a moral and practical dilemma that few could imagine. Inside the burning home lay a massive collection of rare and priceless items, stacked carefully and meticulously across every room. Ancient artifacts, fragile antiques, and objects of incredible value filled the space. Their delicate nature made the fire far more dangerous, and attempting to enter recklessly could destroy irreplaceable treasures in seconds. The firefighters realized that rushing in could not only put their lives at risk but also destroy items that had no replacement. Each piece seemed to hold a story, a memory, or a piece of history that commanded respect and caution. The neighbors outside could not yet see the treasures, but they noticed the sudden change in the firefighters' demeanor, their usual urgency replaced by careful calculation, their determined faces now filled with awe and concern. The crowd began to murmur, trying to guess what could be inside, every suggestion more dramatic than the last, from hidden vaults of gold to priceless artworks, but none of them were close to the truth. The firefighters began communicating with their team over radios, voices hushed but precise, coordinating a careful strategy, one that prioritized safety for both the crew and the fragile items inside. Water hoses were adjusted, and ladders repositioned, not to attack the fire recklessly, but to contain it while avoiding direct damage to the extraordinary contents. The team moved like a careful orchestra, each action deliberate, controlled, and thoughtful. Inside, the flames crept closer to some of the most valuable objects, and the tension became almost unbearable. Every second counted, and yet rushing in could result in disaster. The revelation that this was not just an ordinary home but a repository of history, memories, and priceless artifacts stunned even the most experienced firefighters. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others took a moment to steady themselves before continuing their carefully calculated efforts. Outside, neighbors could only watch, their curiosity mingled with admiration for the bravery and restraint of the firefighters. Cameras captured the moment, videos and photos soon to spread across social media, but the real shock lay inside the house, unseen by anyone but the trained professionals. The revelation had changed the entire nature of the emergency from a standard fire to a delicate rescue of history itself, something that required strategy, patience, and respect, not just courage. The family who owned the house, meanwhile, had been evacuated to safety, but their faces mirrored the firefighters' astonishment. They explained the value of the collection, the countless hours spent gathering and preserving the items, the legacy they represented, and in that moment, it became clear why the firefighters had hesitated, why their initial shock had frozen them in place. This was not just a fire. It was a potential cultural disaster, a risk to history itself. The revelation rippled through the neighborhood like wildfire, transforming fear and panic into awe and fascination. Everyone now understood the magnitude of the situation. The firefighters were no longer simply battling flames, they were protecting something far greater, something that required not just strength, but intelligence, precision, and an extraordinary sense of responsibility. The initial shock had evolved into a deeper understanding, a story that was no longer just about fire but about courage, respect, and the weight of human history. And as the team carefully prepared to tackle the blaze, balancing protection of life with preservation of priceless treasures, the neighborhood waited, holding its collective breath, ready to witness a story unlike anything they had ever seen, a story that would shock, inspire, and remind them that sometimes the greatest challenges are not just about danger, but about recognizing the extraordinary within the ordinary. The revelation of what lay inside the house had thrown the firefighters into a dilemma unlike anything they had faced before. What they had expected, a routine emergency, a chance to save a home and its residents, had transformed into a delicate balancing act between safety and preservation. Their training told them to act quickly, to put out the fire and minimize damage, but every instinct in their bodies screamed caution. The house was no longer just a structure of wood and plaster, it was a treasure trove, filled with priceless, fragile artifacts, some of which could be destroyed in a single moment if approached recklessly. The lead firefighter gathered his team, huddled together, whispering urgently. Each firefighter's face reflected a mix of fear, disbelief, and the weight of responsibility. They had fought fires in the past, saved lives in impossible circumstances, and faced danger without hesitation, yet this was different. This was not just about flames or smoke, it was about legacy, history, and objects that could never be replaced. Their dilemma was not just physical but moral, as rushing in could destroy priceless items while waiting too long risked letting the fire spread beyond control. As water sprayed onto the walls, creating clouds of steam. The firefighters debated the best course of action. One argued that life's safety must always come first, insisting that no amount of valuable artifacts could justify risking injury. Another countered that the house could be saved if they worked carefully, prioritizing protection of the collection while keeping themselves safe. The tension between speed and caution weighed heavily, as every decision had consequences, and there was no clear right answer. Outside, the crowd noticed the unusual pause, their whispers turning into loud speculation. Some accused the firefighters of being indecisive, while others guessed wildly about what could be inside. The firefighters' dilemma became a spectacle, but the team knew that no amount of public opinion could guide their actions. Every second mattered, yet rushing in without thought could result in disaster. Both for themselves and for the delicate treasures inside, the responsibility pressed down on them like the heat from the flames themselves. The firefighters moved slowly, methodically, adjusting hoses and checking structural stability. Each step was calculated. As they balanced the fire's movement with the fragility of the collection, the dilemma extended to tools and methods. Should they risk breaking a wall to reach certain rooms? Could ladders be placed without collapsing delicate floors? Every detail mattered, and every action could have permanent consequences. The crew worked like a team of surgeons performing a critical operation, their precision and restraint as important as their bravery. Inside the house, the fire continued to grow, gnawing at wooden beams and furniture, yet the firefighters' dilemma meant that direct attacks on the flames were limited. Each burst of water was carefully aimed, not just to control the fire but to avoid shocking the priceless objects with sudden water damage. The dilemma forced them to act in ways that were counterintuitive to their instincts. Every firefighter had to suppress their natural urgency, replacing it with patience, strategy, and respect for what lay inside. The team leader made the hardest calls, deciding which areas to approach and which to leave for later, constantly weighing the risk to life, the danger from the fire, and the importance of the treasures inside. The moral and professional tension was almost unbearable, yet in this moment of crisis, the firefighters demonstrated a rare quality that set them apart: the ability to combine courage with wisdom, to recognize that heroism is not just about rushing in but also knowing when to pause, analyze, and protect. As the crowd watched, they could sense the struggle. Even if they didn't understand it fully, the firefighters' dilemma had transformed a simple fire into a story of extraordinary human decision-making, where every choice mattered, where bravery alone was not enough, and where respect for the extraordinary could outweigh instinct. The neighborhood held its collective breath, understanding, on some level, that what they were witnessing was far more than a fire. It was a test of character, skill, and judgment. And in that tense, smoky street, as the firefighters moved cautiously, weighing each action with care, the story of the house, the treasures inside, and the people entrusted with their protection became a testament to the difficult choices that define true heroism, a reminder that sometimes the most courageous act is not rushing forward blindly, but pausing long enough to see the extraordinary and act wisely. Outside the burning house, the atmosphere was electric. The neighborhood that had once been quiet and ordinary had transformed into a hive of curiosity, fear, and astonishment. Neighbors pressed against fences, peered around corners, and craned their necks for the slightest glimpse of what was happening inside. Every eye was fixed on the firefighters, whose hesitation and careful movements had already sparked whispers, rumors, and wild speculation. As smoke curled into the sky and flames danced behind the windows, people began to record the scene on their phones, uploading images and short clips to social media almost instantly. The story spread faster than the fire itself, sparking conversations in groups, text chains, and comment sections. Why aren't the firefighters rushing in? What could possibly be inside that house? Is it someone trapped, or something more? Every post, every video, amplified the tension and suspense, drawing the attention of people far beyond the neighborhood. Children watched with wide eyes, holding their parents' hands tightly. Some sat on curbs, unable to look away despite the smoke stinging their noses. The adults were no less captivated, torn between fear for the family's safety and fascination with the unfolding mystery. Neighbors speculated endlessly, their imaginations filling in the blanks with stories more dramatic than reality. Some whispered about hidden treasures, others about dangerous chemicals, and a few even imagined bizarre or impossible scenarios. The firefighters' unusual caution became the central focus, their every move analyzed, interpreted, and debated by the crowd. People tried to read expressions, guessing their thoughts, while others offered advice or shouted suggestions. Though the crew paid them no mind, they understood the delicate balance of the situation, while the public could only see the drama, the smoke, and the awe-inspiring restraint. Soon, media crews arrived, drawn by the viral videos and social media posts. Cameras rolled, microphones hovered, and reporters shouted questions into the smoky air. The story was quickly turning into a public spectacle, the firefighters' actions dissected on live broadcasts and in news clips. Yet even in the glare of public attention, the team remained focused, moving like a single, disciplined unit, their priority remaining the fire and the priceless items inside. Neighbors started to react in unexpected ways. Some offered blankets, water, and comfort to the evacuated family, while others tried to organize themselves into volunteer support, keeping the street clear and assisting where they could. A few people, overcome with curiosity, approached too closely, only to be gently moved back by firefighters or police. Everyone was caught between wanting to help, wanting to witness the story, and wanting to understand the shocking situation. Amid the chaos, social media exploded with speculation, images, and videos from multiple angles. The story began to trend nationally, with people sharing it as the fire that shocked everyone. Online forums debated the firefighters' hesitation, some praising their caution, others questioning why they weren't acting faster. Everyone wanted answers, but the truth remained carefully hidden behind smoke, flames, and professional restraint. Even the evacuated family watched from a distance, overwhelmed by the spectacle. They had no idea that the story of their home had captured the imagination of thousands, perhaps millions. They could only observe the public reaction, the crowd's awe and confusion, and the sheer gravity of what had happened. Their private shock and fear were now entwined with the world's curiosity, turning their personal crisis into a story of universal fascination. And yet, despite the crowd, the reporters, and the viral attention, the firefighters moved with calm determination, aware that public opinion could wait, that the drama outside, the flashing cameras, and the whispers of neighbors, while intense and distracting, were secondary to the task at hand. Their every action was precise, deliberate, and thoughtful, each choice balancing risk, preservation, and safety. As the public watched in awe and anxiety, they unknowingly witnessed a rare combination of courage, restraint, and professional judgment in the face of the extraordinary. By the end of the hour, the neighborhood had been transformed, not just by fire, smoke, and the shocking revelation inside the house, but by the reaction of the people. The fear, curiosity, support, and amazement of the public had become part of the story itself, adding layers of human emotion, drama, and suspense to an event that had already captivated everyone involved. It was clear that this was more than a simple fire. It was a moment where ordinary people, professionals, and bystanders alike experienced the extraordinary, together. After what felt like an eternity of suspense, the firefighters finally began to take controlled action. The revelation inside the house had completely changed the way they approached the blaze. Their strategy was no longer about extinguishing flames blindly but about protecting the priceless contents while preventing the fire from spreading. Every movement was deliberate, every decision carefully calculated, as if they were performing a delicate rescue rather than a standard emergency response. The team worked in perfect coordination, their years of training and experience coming together in a seamless display of skill and precision. Hoses were positioned to douse flames without directly hitting fragile objects, ladders were placed to provide access to higher floors while avoiding structural collapse, and specialized tools were used to gently remove items in immediate danger. It was a scene that looked chaotic to the untrained eye. Yet every action had purpose, intent, and careful thought behind it. Inside the house, the fire continued to roar, yet the firefighters' efforts began to show results. Smoke thinned in critical areas, flames were redirected away from the most valuable objects, and fragile items were gradually moved to safer zones. The tension outside the house remained high as neighbors watched in awe, their earlier whispers replaced with gasps of admiration. Everyone could feel the extraordinary care, courage, and strategy unfolding before their eyes. The evacuated family, still standing at a safe distance, could hardly believe what was happening. They had feared the worst, imagining that everything they had cherished might be lost, yet now, as firefighters carefully carried priceless artifacts and antiques out of the house, a mixture of relief and amazement washed over them. Their faces reflected disbelief that even in the midst of disaster, their treasures were being saved, protected by people who had once hesitated out of respect for what lay inside. The lead firefighter emerged from the smoke with a rare smile, signaling to his team that the immediate danger to the most valuable items had been neutralized. It was a small victory in the face of an enormous challenge, yet the feeling was profound. The team had successfully balanced risk and preservation, courage and caution, acting as both heroes and guardians of history. The neighborhood erupted into quiet applause, some clapping, others cheering, acknowledging the skill, bravery, and restraint displayed in a moment that could have ended in tragedy. Authorities later explained the full reasoning behind the firefighters' initial hesitation, revealing that the house contained rare antiques, delicate art pieces, and historical documents. Each item represented years of careful collection and irreplaceable history. The firefighters' pause had been a careful assessment of how to save both lives and treasures, and their actions had prevented what could have been a catastrophic loss. The public finally understood the gravity of the situation. Their amazement deepened by the careful, professional judgment that had made all the difference. In the aftermath, the neighborhood buzzed with stories of courage, precision, and extraordinary care. The evacuated family expressed their heartfelt gratitude, praising the firefighters not just for their bravery, but for their patience, respect, and wisdom. It was a lesson in how heroism sometimes requires restraint, thoughtfulness, and a deep understanding of value beyond what is immediately visible. The incident left an indelible mark on everyone who witnessed it, becoming a story of both human courage and extraordinary responsibility. News outlets picked up the story, calling it "the fire that shocked everyone" and "how firefighters saved priceless treasures." Social media posts exploded with admiration for the crew's actions, spreading far beyond the neighborhood, inspiring people worldwide with the idea that bravery isn't always about rushing in, it's about knowing how, when, and why to act. The resolution of the fire had transformed a terrifying event into a testament to human skill, judgment, and respect for what is precious. By the time the fire was fully contained, the neighborhood had returned to a strange calm. Smoke still drifted lazily in the air, and the burned walls of the house bore witness to the danger that had passed, yet there was a renewed sense of appreciation for the firefighters, the fragility of life and possessions, and the extraordinary moments that can appear in the most ordinary settings. The outcome had provided closure, relief, and awe, leaving behind a story that would be remembered, shared, and retold for years to come. The resolution was more than just putting out a fire, it was a demonstration of humanity at its best, a perfect example of courage, wisdom, and the ability to turn shock into deliberate, life-saving action, a story of fire, hesitation, judgment, and the extraordinary care that turned disaster into triumph. The fire had finally been extinguished, the flames reduced to smoldering embers, and the thick gray smoke slowly drifted into the sky, leaving behind charred walls, scorched floors, and a neighborhood forever changed. Yet the story of that morning extended far beyond the burned house, beyond the extraordinary collection of priceless items, and beyond the heroic actions of the firefighters. It became a story of human courage, decision-making, and the unexpected lessons that life sometimes forces upon ordinary people. Neighbors lingered long after the fire trucks left, their eyes still scanning the house, trying to piece together what had happened. Conversations buzzed with amazement, fear, and admiration. "Did you see how careful they were? I can't believe they saved so much. It's incredible what was inside that house." Each retelling added layers of emotion, interpretation, and wonder, turning the morning's events into a shared experience that bound the community together. Even those who had only heard about it later felt the weight of the story, as social media and news reports spread the tale far and wide. The firefighters, exhausted yet proud, reflected quietly on the ordeal, the hesitation they had felt, the split-second decisions, and the careful strategies had tested their skills, instincts, and judgment. They had acted not just as first responders but as guardians of history, protecting life, property, and the extraordinary treasures within the house. Each member of the team recognized the rare significance of what they had done, a blend of bravery, patience, and wisdom that few would ever witness firsthand. The family, now safe, walked through what remained of their home in disbelief, grateful not only that their lives were unharmed but that so much of their cherished collection had survived. Their expressions were a mixture of sadness for the damage, relief for what was saved, and awe at the firefighters' extraordinary efforts. They realized that the true value of the experience was not just in the physical items preserved, but in the lessons learned about resilience, care, and the unexpected ways people rise to challenges. As days passed, the story became a symbol, a reminder that heroism is not always about speed or force. Sometimes it is about restraint, awareness, and thoughtful action. Sometimes it is about recognizing what is truly valuable and protecting it with patience and courage. The incident sparked conversations in schools, workplaces, and online communities, inspiring discussions about ethics, responsibility, and the importance of measuring risk. The lessons were subtle yet profound, showing that even in the face of chaos, careful judgment can prevent irreversible loss. The neighborhood itself felt changed, united by the shared experience of witnessing something extraordinary. Neighbors spoke more with each other, looked out for one another, and developed a deeper appreciation for the ordinary safety and calm they often took for granted. What had begun as a terrifying morning of smoke and fire had become a story of human connection, respect for life and history, and the quiet heroism that can emerge in moments of crisis. For the firefighters, the incident would remain unforgettable, a story to tell for years, a benchmark in their careers. The hesitation that had sparked curiosity and debate had been necessary, a pause that allowed them to see the extraordinary and act in a way that saved lives and treasures alike. It reminded them, as well as everyone who witnessed the event, that courage is not always about rushing forward. It is also about knowing when to pause, when to analyze, and when to act wisely. And for the world outside the neighborhood, the story became a viral legend, a tale that combined danger, suspense, and human ingenuity, inspiring countless viewers with its shock, its lessons, and the realization that sometimes ordinary people and ordinary streets can be the stage for extraordinary events. The morning that began with smoke and fear had ended with relief, reflection, and awe, leaving behind a story that would resonate far beyond the burned walls. In the end, the fire, the hesitation, and the careful actions of the firefighters became more than just a news story. It became a testament to the extraordinary hidden within ordinary life, a reminder that courage, wisdom, and patience can turn even the most shocking and dangerous situations into moments of hope, humanity, and lasting inspiration. The house may have been scarred, but the story of what happened there would remain perfect, indelible, and unforgettable.